Laura, a near-term issue seems to be all of these activist battles. How should Bob Iger approach handling someone like Nelson Peltz and perhaps others?
So I think what's great for public shareholders about somebody like Nelson Peltz is, when Bob Iger comes out and says, we're going to spend $60 billion on the theme park over 10 years, that might be great for him, but public shareholders care about this year and next year because they're going to be retired in 10 years. So I think what Nelson Peltz forces Bob Iger to do is justify the cost structure at the entertainment assets and the TV assets compared to the revenue growth, which is single digits to negative. And it really forces him to cut costs. I think it's a primary reason they're going to cut a lot of content costs on the streaming side, because they can't cut them on the sports side because their rights fees keep going up. So I think what Nelson Peltz does is force Bob Iger to basically fire more people, which, unless he can grow the revenue faster on let's call it the core business, the traditional business, he needs to cut the overhead here.
So, Laura, it sounds like if I'm hearing you right, you think that maybe some of the changes that would be enacted by Nelson Peltz would actually better position Disney then for the future, maybe make you a little bit more positive on the name.
I would say that Nelson Peltz is far more short-term oriented than Bob Iger, who's a business builder. And I think public shareholders are more aligned with that kind of time frame.
So with that considered, Laura, I mean, we've heard Disney talking about the thousands of acres of land that they could develop on, building out more of the parks and resorts experiences in other parts of the world. That still looks like money going out the door. And so at what point do you think Disney is ultimately going to be able to deliver on this and perhaps satisfy some of the investors?
So I think sort of this is a tale of two cities right now, meaning that the parks are really healthy. So I think Wall Street is supportive of investing money in the parks because the return on capital of money into the parks is going to be positive. But I do think the traditional like ESPN linear business and the studios have sort of had underwhelming results, meaning when the market's giving them capital, they're not actually over delivering the cost of capital. So in order to do that, you have to cut costs. So I just think that the economics of the the streaming / linear TV business are broken right now for the whole industry, not just for the Walt Disney Company, for the whole industry. So the industry needs to consolidate. It needs to rip out costs. It needs to spend less on content. And I think getting out of India is going to help Disney. They've announced that Reliance and Disney are in a handshake deal right now. I think that's helpful. And I think when they launch ESPN, the app, that's going to be helpful also.